MMA Untold. I am your host, Taylor Gabriels. Alongside me, as always, is the tatted up man himself, full of juicy hops, Mr. Zach Scooby Gratton. Zach Scrappy Gratton. Let me correct myself. And down on the end is the Godfather, Tim Thomas.
I'm already uncomfortable.
Juicy hops.
Yeah, juicy. I don't like the word juicy, really.
Is
that a new tat, or have I just not noticed that before?
It is.
He got it yesterday.
What? I don't know. We've got like
You know what it is, though?
I don't know. It looks like E.T. with a
Are
fucking
you
wig
fucking
on.
kidding me? You don't know what this is?
Dude, I don't know. We're doing this live on the podcast? What is it? It's got to be a Harry Potter thing. You always do Harry Potter stuff.
Whomping Willow with the car in it.
Oh, okay, sorry. I had to visualize those in my head when I read the books.
Whatever.
Anyway, we're not here to discuss that. We are here to talk about the Lioness, Amanda Nunes. And if you listen to our last episode, you'll get the Juicy Hops reference, and you'll also be scratching your head.
Please stop saying juicy.
I'm sorry.
Is it like moist?
I'm
it's
out.
the beer you drink, man.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Just all right.
But the word juicy is very offensive over here.
We've lost like 40 listeners.
That's fine.
Right off in the first.
We're gonna get them back. So
did we have 40?
Well,
if you listened to last episode, you know that we were planning to do CM Punk this episode, and we are not.
Should I explain myself, or
I think you should explain for the podcast
just
why we lied to everyone. We're big fat liars.
We are big fat liars. Well, so we were going to do CM Punk, and we kind of had a revelation that there's a big pay-per-view coming up this weekend that no one's talking about, and we got to talking about that issue, and we're like, this is bullshit. Amanda Nunes has beaten everyone in spectacular fashion, and she's headlining, and no one gives a shit. And we realized that the UFC is just not telling her fucking story, and so it's time that we do, and we weren't going to let this opportunity pass us by. So, fuck it, we decided to stop wasting time and get right to it. She deserves it.
Absolutely.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So, this is the story of Amanda Nunes, and Amanda's story begins on May 30th, 1988, in the small city of Pojuca, Brazil. And hey, Zach, you like how I brought back the birthdays there for you?
It's just a couple episodes too late, but I'll accept it.
Well, we'll be good for next year when your birthday comes around, okay? Just got to wait another year, bud. Hang in there.
We have to wait for another fighter to have the same birthday.
That's okay. Amanda was the youngest of three girls, and her mother, Yvette, raised Amanda and her sisters, Valderine and Vanessa, alone. We don't know much about her father. There's not a lot out there on her father. We just know that her mother was a single mother for most of Amanda's life. And as a kid, Amanda had little interest in school and instead set her sights on athletics, particularly soccer. But soccer was no match for Amanda's energy.
Yeah, and, karate, she gets into karate at about the same age. You know, she's like fluctuating between karate, soccer, and soccer is the first calling. You know, it's huge down there in Brazil. And, just with like, she's so energetic, she needed something to do. So other than playing soccer, karate is a very good way to get her energy out. So that's one of the things that her mom tried to do to get her wound down, basically.
Is that like the equivalent of me watching Karate Kid on repeat in my childhood?
Wait, that winds you down?
Well, it's just, I guess it fires me up. I guess it's the opposite now that I think about it. But I did watch it a lot.
Energy outlet then.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Just over and over again.
And Nunes got serious with soccer. She was a striker.
Mm-hmm.
She was very aggressive. And she says that eventually she gets an invite to play soccer. I can't remember the name of the team, but she was basically headed toward national team.
Yeah. Great scorer too. It just wasn't for her. In fact, she, even that young, she gets into a street fight regarding a soccer ball.
Yeah.
The guy, some guy comes up and, kicks the ball away from her and says, "This is my ball." And she just was like, excuse me? So used methods, like sweeped him to the ground and just gave that great ground and pound.
What age was this?
10-ish.
There's nothing like leg sweeps and stuff?
Yeah.
All right.
Maybe she was watching Karate Kid.
Yeah, seriously.
Sweep the leg, Johnny.
Well, though Amanda's interest and skill level continued to grow, Amanda's mother had her reservations based on her street fights and her fights on the pitch and decided to enroll her daughter in capoeira. No stranger to combat sports herself, Yvette knew the benefits the Brazilian martial art would provide.
Go ahead and say that for me again, because I have a hard time saying that.
Capoeira.
Capoeira.
I
Okay.
thought you were going to go back to pitch because that sets me off when we say pitch in America. I don't think we're allowed to say that, but that's a whole nother thing.
I'm sorry. That's what it's
Sorry.
called. Soccer pitch,
Yeah,
right?
It's the field for me.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, I was trying to be PC.
Proper.
Proper. Yeah.
I'm
This-
going to go with an age thing, and I don't know what you guys are referencing at all.
No.
Are you going to talk about capoeira?
Yeah,
Sorry.
I was.
Before you talk about capoeira,
Sure.
can I talk about Eddie from Tekken and my experience with capoeira? Because I love me some capoeira, at least in Tekken.
Go ahead.
Because I would beat fools up at the arcade with Eddie. What a beast, man. And that was before
Tekken
I
was
knew what the hell capoeira was. I just knew I liked his movements.
Tekken was not my game, though. I was definitely like
Street
a Mortal
Fighter?
Kombat.
Mortal Kombat?
Well, yeah, Mortal Kombat, Killer Instinct.
Never played it.
What?
Yeah, dude, sorry.
What fighting games did you play when you were little?
Mortal Kombat, that was
Tyke?
my... Yeah, what?
Tyke.
Tyke?
You little tyke over there?
No, it was... yeah, no, Mortal Kombat, for sure. But they didn't have What?
Capoeira.
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 Which is crazy. I can't, I have a problem saying that word. I don't know if it's like a lisp thing, and now my lisp is more obvious to people. But no, so that comes, it's like a martial art that combines elements of like dance and aerobics and like just music, which is kind of crazy, but super effective. When like I was trying to do it and I just can't move like that. I have no rhythm, and you have to have some type of rhythm. But yeah, the people who have it down pat, you don't know which way they're going. They switch their moves, and I think the hardest I've ever been kicked was in the stomach, and it was from a capoeira fighter. Like, it was crazy. So it's very effective. But I'm surprised I think it's too slow to see it in like the UFC and like the octagon.
Well, I see it as more. Well, first, let's just say I believe capoeira started as an African slave martial arts, and it was meant to fight while your hands were bound, basically. So you had fluidity of movement, and you could fight with your hands tied. But I see capoeira as more of this martial art that lends itself to other martial arts or can inform other martial arts the same way perhaps a football player would take ballet lessons
Yeah.
to help them with balance and agility and things like that. We'll see later in Amanda's story, in her story, that she, this capoeira is going to help her with her striking and her movement, etc. So,
and her mom, putting her into that, she was also big on boxing. She trained in boxing, and Amanda's uncle, Jose,
we think.
Jose Silva, the Valley Tudo, like her mom cornered him in that. So she was all about combat sports. That was it. That was the outlet that she felt Amanda needed to get.
When I first saw that name in the research, I literally was like, I thought it said Joe Silva, and I thought this was going to be like a huge twist
Right?
ending. I was like, oh, we've gotten to the bottom of it. Maybe there's a family feud. No, it's Jose. Yeah.
Jose.
Jose.
Well, Amanda took to martial arts quickly, but it wasn't until her sister Vanessa invited Amanda to join her at a jiu-jitsu class that Amanda fell in love with the sport.
Yeah, and I read in an article that the town she came from was like just too small. Like the ceiling, she was ready to burst, and she had no room basically. So she decided to move with her sister. Ultimately, started to live in a gym because her sister lived too far away from the gym that she wanted to train at. So yeah, she got into jiu-jitsu and just was oh my gosh. She was
Can I ask you a
wrecking
question?
ball.
Do you ever think back? Do you ever hear all these stories where it's like, yeah, invited by her sister, invited by their brother? I always think back on my life, and I think back on all the times I got invited to go places. You ever think where I'm just like, yeah, you want to head up to the play some hoops, the gym, and I'm always like, I'm good. I got my nugs, playing some video games. I'm all good. And just like,
You
what
could've
if
been a
you just
star.
passed up on all these opportunities, and here I am,
You
just
could have been a
fucking-
star.
just all these years later, how many opportunities were blown because of a 20-pack of chicken nugs and a fucking Final Fantasy VII? Sorry.
Oh, the life that could have been.
The
It's
life
like
that could have
sliding
been.
doors. We could have seen
Exactly.
Tim's two lives if he had taken
Exactly.
a different path. Yeah.
And she was actually so good. She became so good in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that every tournament that she entered as a blue belt, a purple belt, or a brown belt, goodness, she won. So every tournament she entered as that level of belt, she was just beating everybody in absolutes, and like that was her calling. She was there for that, and it was
And she when she
clearly
moved into the
apparent.
gym, she was the only female
Yeah.
fighter there. So she's with a bunch of guys. She's training at Edson Cavario's gym, and that gym became a home to the young Nunes, both literally and figuratively. And it's here where Nunes is going to receive her nickname, the Lioness.
which is incredible because we just confirmed before this that we just thought it was just a nickname that was kind of lame, I guess.
Yeah,
no meaning behind it. We didn't know anything about it. That's a pretty badass name now. Like,
So tell the listeners how she got that name.
so basically the gym, the logo is two lions, and her being, the only woman there, they say she just naturally became the Lioness. She was the only woman there, and yeah.
Listen, UFC, I don't ask for much. I know we're going to say a lot of shit in this that they're never going to say, but if you could just give us that one. If you could tell us where the goddamn Lioness thing comes from.
See, I mean, she's got it
why-
tattooed
for
on her back
seriously.
shoulder.
Because they always just call her Lioness, but I've never heard them explain why.
And I'm sure, like, your extreme fans know, like, they may look her up. Her favorite fans probably know. But, like, we're fans of the sport. Like, I don't know, like, how much more of a fan do you want us to be? And we didn't know. Like,
No.
Well, this is a good time. Let me say this. We do a lot of research. We got some research from USA Today, from Fighters Only magazine, from MMA Fighting, and we listen to UFC Undisputed. We did our due diligence on doing our research, but the truth is sometimes we look up these fighters and there's too many articles to sift through, and you're going to leave some stuff out. With Nunes, I found 4, maybe 5 articles that were relevant to her story.
Yeah, and that really is worth noting because, Taylor, when he's doing the research, will kind of share a bunch of links with us, and it's normally a huge list, and that was 4. And great articles, good information. I know you found a lot of different sources, but for a fighter of her magnitude, that's fucking ridiculous. If you search Ronda Rousey, Miesha Tate, the women she's beat, okay, how many are you going to find? Shit, you couldn't even click the amount of Ronda Rousey links, which I understand the Rousey thing, but Miesha would have a ton more. Go through the other divisions. Rose, ton of articles, guaranteed. And that's why we're here. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So after competing in and winning several jiu-jitsu tournaments, as Zach spoke to, and developing her boxing skills, Nunes decided it was time to try her hand at MMA. And in March of 2008, Amanda took her first pro fight against fellow Brazilian Ana Maria. The fight would last a mere 35 seconds. In the blink of an eye, Nunes had received her first taste of defeat.
yeah, and it was at that 35 seconds armbar, and it's, to me, it feels like it would be like a major setback, like being as dominant as she was in jiu-jitsu, and having the support and confidence from not only her family but her training partners and the entire gym. But as many fighters that we cover and many great stories, she didn't allow this to hinder her at all.
I like this too because, when you first hear that, even the listener right there is probably expecting you to say in 35 seconds she knocks so-and-so out, or she, you know what I mean? But it's she actually loses.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty interesting to see her actually persevere.
And, her next 5 fights, she just goes on a tear. In less than 3 months after that loss, she takes on Patty Barbosa, round 1, 11 seconds. Like, corner stoppage too. Corner's like, nope, throwing in the white towel. That's it. Just over a month later after that, she fights again, round 1 TKO. 3 more wins in spectacular fashion, all TKO. And, history kind of repeats itself here, because after this, I feel like, even now Salvador is becoming too small of a place. And this is where, she moves on.
She's going to leave, yeah. So at this point, she's 5-1 with 5 TKOs, as you said. And yeah, it's just too small. She's ready to move to the United States to train. And she first goes to New Jersey, then eventually to Miami, where she would train with MMA Masters, and then ultimately would end up with American Top Team, where she currently trains. And her debut in the States came under the Strikeforce banner and took only 14 seconds for Amanda to secure another TKO victory. So this time favors her. So that's her 6th TKO win, and things are looking good. But
Can I quickly
yeah.
rewind for a second there? When she comes over here, she leaves her family behind, right? That's just one of those things that you blow past, and here we are, we're going through the Strikeforce results and so on and so forth. But she was so tight with her family. She says to this day they still Skype every day, they talk every single day. It was a huge part of it. Again, don't look past that stuff. You know what I mean? Can you imagine that? It's like, it's hard. We debate moving 30 minutes west from your family or whatever. You know what I mean? My wife and I debate that kind of stuff back when we were leaving college. It's like, where would you live? And that's a tough thing for you. You moved from Florida.
Yeah.
That's a tough change. She moved countries. You know what I mean? You can't look past that.
No,
shit.
I'm glad you brought that up. And she is very tight with her family, very tight with her grandmother, who still lives in Brazil, her mother who still lives there, her sisters.
It kind of shows here the kind of person she is, just head straight. This is all I want to do. I want to fight. I want to train. I want to become a champion. And, we're going to get into later that it may have hurt her that she's this way.
Yes, we will get to that. But as she's going through 6 straight TKOs and things are looking up, she reaches a loss that's going to change everything.
Yeah, and that loss would come by the hands of Alexis Davis in her bantamweight debut. And, she goes back and in walks this training partner that maybe she wasn't really open to at the time.
Yeah, so Nina Ansaroff comes to MMA Masters. She was training at the time at American Top Team. And she goes to MMA Masters, and this is only a couple of days after Nunes loses. And Nunes is in the gym sparring, sees Nina. Nina was actually there to help someone else.
Yeah.
But they pair them up, and Amanda Nunes just treats her like a punching bag, just goes full bore, 100% on Nina.
Very open about it. And her thought process is like, I'm the Lioness. Like, no other girl should be here, basically. And she even said, I wanted to hurt her. Like, that's pretty intense.
That's just not in, like, it's where I know, obviously, my dumb ass, I'd never be a fighter, but that's just not in me, man. Like, I love, obviously, after we've done the research, I love Amanda. I'm excited to tell this story, and especially when we get to the untold stuff later. That stuff I'll never get. Like, you're the only woman there. It's like, will you want more women there to train with? And then you get, like, super violent and sparring?
Well, it's funny you say that, because that essentially is what happened. I mean, Nina ends up changing her mindset and changing it to that, because she sees Nina as a threat when she comes in, but Nina stands her ground, keeps sparring with her, keeps up with her, earns her respect, and then eventually starts to change Nunes's mind. I'm not here to compete with you. I'm here to be your partner. I'm here to be a training partner. I'm here to help you succeed. And once that happens, it changes everything for Amanda, not just in her fighting life, but in her personal life too.
Yeah, well, she was this antisocial person who didn't want to do anything. She wouldn't go out and hang out, and her sisters would even ask her to go out. She didn't want to do it. She's like, nope, I'm training. And at first, Nina asked her to go out, and she's still resistant to the fact of going out and just having a life. Finally, she kind of opens up to that, and it turns into something that was not in the works. It wasn't planned or anything, but she opened her up. She made her realize, I need to have this outlet. I need to be able to, do other things and train and not just be, I would say, single-minded and just be all about training. You need to have that life. And Nina provided that for her. And it turned into what would start a love story, basically.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So the two of them, once that part of Amanda's mind kind of turned, it was turned for good, and her and Nina are inseparable to this day. They're almost never apart from each other. And this is the start of that love story. And Nunes would become the first openly gay champion in the UFC.
And can I say this too? That story you just told about her socializing, like I didn't know that, and it makes a lot of sense because when you hear them speak, like if you hear them in interviews together, like that MMA Unfiltered one or UFC Unfiltered, they like finish each other's sentences. Like Nina's really able to kind of speak for her when she struggles with the language sometimes, and kind of translate what she means, and it is like the yin and the yang thing. And that is like the best relationships. Like actually when I heard them speak, I was like, damn, that's like a really healthy relationship because they play off each other so well. And you're like, those are the ones where you see people help each other advance when they're the polar opposites. You can bring each other to the middle, you know? So
it's fun. I thought the story she told about how the two of them resolve disputes in the gym when they're sparring, and they leave it in the gym. They don't take it home with them because they were asked what happens when they get into an argument. They basically just hold it inside, go to training, beat the piss out of each other, and then come home.
I was in a really weird place when I was trying to sort through that mentally. I was like, how does that work?
Yeah,
like that's weird. Like,
I tell you what, you have to have a very strong mind to not take that home. Because if you're frustrated to the point where, you know, that's how you let your frustration out, but then you're not able to, I guess, get control of a situation, like it's overwhelmed you so much that you end up getting your ass beat, and then you have to go home and deal with it even more. Like,
it's super walk of shame.
Whoa.
But you know there's going to be the next day.
Of course.
Yeah, you
know,
fight again. It's true.
You're going to get to fight again.
Another day.
So, as we said, Nunes would become the first openly gay female champion in the UFC, and after competing briefly in Invicta, after Strikeforce, Nunes would win 2 straight in the UFC, including a victory over future 145-pound champion Jermaine Durandamy. However,
you know,
do you
there's some people.
here?
You know, there are some people. They're like, who? And
Yes.
they're not. And only half of them are joking, and the other half, it's like, it's not your fault. She did win the title, and that is what happens when you set Holly Holm up to win a title, and she doesn't. And then somebody wins it, doesn't fight for a year, and they have to take it away. She literally like wouldn't take any fights and shit. Cool, that worked out.
Zach and I watched the GDR fight, by the way, with Nunes, and it was pretty one-sided.
You know,
I didn't remember watching that fight live. I'm sure we did.
Yeah.
But again, not our fault. Neither of these women were being promoted. But wow, yeah, it's quite the one-sided fight.
Oh yeah, you know, and I'm surprised at some of the commentary saying that maybe it shouldn't have been stopped, but man.
It was over.
Clear.
It was over.
Very clear.
So Nunes again is on a win streak. She's in the UFC, but as was common in her career to this point, she's going to once again suffer defeat in her next fight, this time at the hands of Alpha Cat Zingano, who, by the way, we've covered on this podcast, and if you haven't listened to that episode, I recommend you do so. But as it was before, so it is here. The loss to Zingano is going to open up a door for Nunes that's going to really shape her future.
Can I say something too? Before
Yeah.
I just want to say it's really cool. We haven't done this too often where the stories have crossed paths like that, because it's interesting to get now to Amanda Nunes' story where I remember this moment in Cats. It's like Cats rise up. And it's like a crazy fight for her with everything that's going on. And it's now weird to tell the other side of the story. And it's going to have this huge impact on Amanda, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Hey, UFC, there's crazy implications in these fights. Not just people screaming about knockouts.
Well, it's like reading a story or watching a movie from the hero's perspective, and then them releasing like, okay, here's what was going on from Voldemort's
I'm waiting for
perspective.
him to tell the 50 Shades of Grey when they did like the guy's point of view book. Didn't they I think they did the other one. Zach's gonna jump, or was they do Twilight one too? I don't know. I'm just waiting for you to hop in.
No, she started out strong. 2 wins in the UFC. I mean, what better start in a rising women's division like to get your shot at the title? But there was still room for improvement, and that's where the Cat Zingano fight comes in. And I think this is actually where the rumors, or not the rumors, but the downfall of Amanda Nunes was because she can't make it past the first round. She gasses out. She can't do this. She can't do that. And it wasn't that. We just find out that Nina, you know, was just working with her to kind of calm her down, like you said earlier.
This is the door that open every loss in her career seems to benefit her and improve her or reveal something about her. That second loss leads to her meeting Nina, or the third loss leads to her meeting Nina. And this one, Nina's going to realize that Amanda has this tendency to be hyperactive, to push herself too far, too fast. And that single-minded thing that you talked about earlier, Zach, that still applies here. It's been with her whole life. And Nina says, basically, you need to look back on your childhood and see where this all started and see how this has led to now. How you're only focused on the fight before it starts, you're focused on it during, you're focused on it after, and then you're focused on your next one. You can't sit down to read a book. You can't go out and have fun. Mm-hmm. All you think about is fighting, and it's harming you. It's actually not helping you. And so Amanda refers to Nina as her psychiatrist, which I don't believe Nina is a qualified psychiatrist, but it's more tongue-in-cheek. But she really did help Nunes kind of have some self-discovery here. And she's like, I never sat down to read a book. I could not sit still to read. I know someone like that. He's sitting across from me.
There's a difference between you not being able to read and her not being able to sit down to read. That's different, Zach. Don't do this.
Oh, man. Yeah, I just can't, I don't get into it.
He's literally got Harry Potter tattooed on his body, and he has never read the books. That tells you all you need to know. And
Zach
it's not because he
roasted.
can't read, as Tim said. It's because he has...
Or
Well, maybe. But you really do suffer from this.
yeah.
You cannot get it together. Even right now.
He just
you
was
can't
out.
get it together.
No, whatever. I started the audiobook. I started the audiobook.
All right, that
counts.
Sure.
We said earlier, 10 podcasts ago, that it counts. Whatever. Continue the story.
Nice throwback.
Anyway,
where am I at?
Let's continue on
like,
here.
reading.
Amanda would make the most of this new discovery and move her training to American Top Team. So she's there with Nina now, and after demolishing Shayna Baszler and Sarah McMahon, Nunes would win a hard-fought match against Muay Thai champion and number one contender Valentina Shevchenko, solidifying a shot at the title against Miesha Tate at the historic UFC 200.
Yeah, and she actually put on a show for how crazy that entire week was, with the John Jones fallout, with Conor not getting pushed back. It was just a shit show. And, the card started out strong. I think it started out with 3 finishes, and then it was just decision galore. It was just decision. And she comes out in the first round, I believe. And sorry to break your guys' heart, but it happened. And she put on a striking clinic against Miesha Tate, and then took her back and choked her out to win the title. And I wouldn't say she saved the card, but she got performance of the night. She put on a show when she needed. They headlined the show, which came out of nowhere. The women's bantamweight title headlining UFC 200. It's a huge milestone, and for her to do it in the way she did against who she did it to is just perfect.
Well, credit to both of them, because number one, if you recall, Miesha Tate could have just waited around for Ronda, which is awesome that Miesha took the fight. Exactly. And also, to break Miesha, nobody could break Miesha, and Amanda Nunes did it. It's like, damn, she brutalizes people, And again, we're gonna get to more of this later with the lack of promoting with her. It's like she's putting, like you just said, she's putting on exciting fights, and she's a bunch of decisions in a row or whatever. It's like she's coming in and she's knocking people out. So she's doing her part. She's showing, again, let's remember this as we get to these future fights here. She's showing up, saving these big cards when they need her the most with an exciting finish. And a lot of times you leave these cards, you leave the bar, your buddy's place. What do you remember? What happened last? And she put on a crazy performance.
Yeah, and I think this is kind of where, the first fight with Shevchenko that you alluded to was it was a tough fight. I mean, it was unanimous, but there was something kind of brewing there, and Shevchenko stayed relevant. And we kind of knew that maybe, the Ronda thing coming back, that she would probably fight Shevchenko again sometime down the road, because Shevchenko's not going anywhere. I think this is kind of, a rivalry, like, with that fight, it maybe has started because it was so hard fought and so close.
Yeah, well, in front of one of the largest audiences in MMA history, Nunes showcased her fast and brutal style, finishing the veteran Tate in a matter of minutes. But despite her wrecking ball style of fighting, Nunes wasn't getting that recognition that some felt she deserved. And this became crystal clear in the lead up to her next fight. The queen of women's MMA, Ronda Rousey, announced that she was coming back to the octagon, and Nunes was on her hit list. And if UFC 200 didn't cement Nunes as a star in people's minds, surely a win over Ronda Rousey is going to do it, right?
Not so much. It's a huge problem, because we said it leading up to the fight that they're just promoting Ronda Rousey coming back. Even the poster, the official poster, says she's back. She is not the champion. You are not promoting the right person here. But like we said in a video that we posted up before, like, Ronda was Dana's girl. Like, how are they not going to promote Ronda? I get it. It's the moneymaker. But you have, in this situation, is a perfect scenario to build up Amanda's story, to put it up against, Ronda Rousey's, rap sheet of what she has accomplished. And they failed.
First of all, it's a joke, because I know we're going to talk a lot about the promoting as we go here, but it's an absolute joke and a total miscalculation by ownership in the bookers here. That I don't understand how they thought Ronda would just run through her, because clearly when they promoted like they did, they thought she was going to destroy Nunes. And I know I was guilty as charged. You talked earlier about, like, she gassed out in the cat fight. And for a while there, I was like, she's going to gas out again. Like, I thought she was going to gas out, and I kept waiting for it to happen. But to think that, I guess maybe you just would think that Ronda would take her down, and she didn't. But that's a total miscalculation. And I don't know how you go into a fight of that magnitude, especially coming off of her headlining UFC 200, and now it's her big shot against Ronda, and just literally not even fucking talk about her. But there you go, folks. That's why we're in the position we're in, I
think this is actually, it kind of started, this was 2016, end of 2016. I think January, February is when talks of a podcast was brewing between us, and then ultimately led into telling the fighter's story, because we realized that huge situation like this, where you could have a megastar and Amanda Nunes, and they completely failed to do it.
And oh, by the way, at the time, Ronda's like mid-media blackout. She won't talk to anybody.
Yeah.
And Amanda's doing the media rounds, doing her thing, trying her best. And UFC just doesn't give a shit.
Yep.
I mean, seriously, who are you going to take care of? The one that's taking care of you? I mean, isn't it, what have you done for me lately? Like, Ronda, I know she's the big ticket seller. She's the big draw. But Amanda's trying. She's doing her part. It's bullshit.
Yep. And although Nunes had done what no other fighter had ever done and finished Ronda Rousey in the first round, fans and analysts alike seemed to attribute the win to a lack of focus and preparation on the part of Rousey more than skill level on the part of Amanda.
Can I ask you guys a question about that fight? I don't know if you're about to blow past that fight.
Go
Sometimes we get to these major fights and we kind of blow past them. This was a complete destruction in like a minute. What did you guys think was going to happen that night? Your honest opinion, if you can put yourself back, because I know we watched that at your place, Zach.
I think so. My honest opinion was Ronda, her pride, I felt, would take over, and she'd try and stand and strike. And I didn't think she'd have a chance striking, but I thought maybe if she could get her to the ground, she had a chance. That's before I knew any accolades that Amanda Nunes had for jiu-jitsu or anything like that. I thought if she had a chance to get her to the ground, she could take it. The anticipation was there. I was ready for her to come back finally. I was bitter that she didn't talk to the media. She was gone for 13 months. Like, that was bullshit to me. I thought, I do what we all hate. I kind of hedged my bets. I was like, if she stands, she's going to get smoked. If she goes to the ground, I think she has a chance.
Well, it's not hedging if you're. I mean, that's a good
It's
assessment.
just your analysis on the fight. I honestly
I didn't
don't
put money
recall.
on the fight, put it like that.
I don't recall what my thought process was leading into that fight. All I can tell you is that hindsight is obviously looking back on it. I don't know how anyone could think that Rousey was going to win that fight. I'm sure we did. I'm sure
Well,
they
I'm
did.
sure she was the betting favorite.
Yeah,
I'd
and
imagine
she
was
was
the betting favorite.
She was the betting favorite for sure. But I will say this about Ronda's sort of blackout, her absence from the media. It did, in a way, cause you to kind of question, because you could say, well, that doesn't play in her favor. That's bad. She's, she's having all kinds of problems. Now that's what people say. She was in a weird spot. She was having all kinds of problems. She's not going to be focused. Amanda's going to destroy her. But then there's also that element of mystery. Maybe she's coming back stronger than ever and she's focused and she's not going to let the media distract her. And all she needs to do is grab hold of Amanda and the fight's over.
I completely agree with you. I absolutely I couldn't get a read. That's why I wanted to ask you guys, because I just remember feeling very confused, because I'm like, man, has she quietly figured something out? Has she put her ego aside? Maybe got new trainers? I don't know. But okay. Yeah.
I just think, and when you say people were like, oh, the lack of focus or she wasn't in her head. I think that's bullshit too, because it was also these MMA outlets that were saying, oh my God, she's never looked better. She's never looked more prepared. Like, she's so focused. Like, you say it before the fight, you still have to say that after the fight. You can't change just because, oh, you know what? She was out for 13 months, ring rust. Like, fuck that. You cannot go one way and then completely switch it as soon as she loses to kind of, I don't know if it's to, get clicks on your articles or it's to go back on what you said. I don't know. You can't do that. They were saying that she was the best she's ever looked, and I thought she looked the best she's ever looked. She was on weight like a week beforehand. But
when you look back on it now and you hear her say things like, it's a privilege. Ronda's saying things like, it's a privilege to hear me speak. And you look back on that and you're like, okay, so it was like an ego thing and she was still fucked up from the loss, like mentally. Now looking back on it, it makes a lot of sense that Nunes, and you're right, her ego absolutely did get in the way, and she stood with Nunes, and that is a recipe for fucking disaster. So I think it's a very historic fight, and I didn't want to just blow past it. I thought it was worth kind of going over our mental state when we were heading into that.
Yeah, the star-making rub felt by Holly Holm from beating Ronda Rousey was missing for Nunes, and things would only get worse. Hours before her next fight, a highly anticipated rematch with Valentina Shevchenko, Nunes was forced to withdraw due to a sinus infection, a severe sinus infection. And we're going to talk about that in the untold portion of this show because there's a lot to say about that. But it would leave fans to question her commitment and whether or not she deserved the title of women's bantamweight champion.
I was just going to say, for those of you out there that are just hearing sinus infection, hold your goddamn horses. We're going to get to it. It's a lot more the way that can affect you heading into a fight is a much bigger deal than you would think. And we'll talk about why that's important, especially for Amanda, with the way she has not been promoted up until this point. Excuse me. The way she has not been promoted up until this point, she can't go into a fight impaired because for her, a loss would be huge.
Very. It would kind of. She's irrelevant, not irrelevant. It's a very strong word. She's not promoted now. If she lost,
yep.
It's over.
How long would it take for her to get back up there?
Unfortunately, a while. And we should say that Amanda does win that rematch by split decision. And that basically brings us up to date. At the recording time of this podcast, we're up to date. That concludes Amanda's story. So what are your guys' just quick takeaways from her story, and then we'll move into the untold part.
The told portion of her story, again, obviously, you could say it's a little bit untold, but obviously the first openly gay champion, pretty awesome, pretty cool. That should be promoted much more. We'll get to that later. But the more interesting one to me that I didn't know until we did the research was actually the thing you kind of said about how every time she loses, there's like this event and growth out of it. Pretty awesome, because someone that she beat, Ronda Rousey, never really grew from her losses, and now she's in the WWE. It's like it never really worked for her. How you handle your losses are everything. It's like we talked about Frank Mir losing his first like 8 wrestling matches, and then the coach says he saw the 8 different ways to lose or whatever, and then never lost again.
Yeah.
It's awesome that she has these moments where she loses and grows each time, and I am so guilty in MMA to this day when I see somebody lose of being like, well, yeah, like I did it with Stipe forever, and I know there's some comparison here with Stipe, but I did it with him forever. Where I'm like, yeah, but he lost to Struve, I think, and I'm like, yeah,
Dos Santos,
this
Struve,
guy's not for real. But over and over again, they keep demolishing people, and I'm like, I have got to stop judging these people on the old versions of themselves, versions, I should say, of themselves, because they improve, and she's a different fighter in 2018 than she was years ago. You know what I mean? So it's pretty awesome.
I think part of that's attributed to the Ronda Rouseys, the GSPs, the John Jones
that never lose.
Yeah, we almost just, if you're going to be a star, then you have to have no flaws.
Yeah, Tim, and I'm just going to piggyback off you. Is my takeaway is, her ability to change in those situations. After you said after her losses, she grows so much. For me, it's, taking in advice and being willing and open to the thoughts of her now significant other, and Nina, someone who is smaller than her, someone who is not anywhere close to the level of competition that she is in, and she's still learning stuff from someone, it's almost saying like an NFL player is taking advice from a college player on how to place your hands when you're going to catch the ball or something, so her ability to accept that, and her willingness to accept that she does have to change in certain ways, that sticks out for me. And yeah, that's my main takeaway from Amanda.
And there you have it. The story of the Lioness, Amanda Nunes. But that isn't the whole story. There's more to the women's bantamweight champion than you'll find on the internet than we could find in the 4 articles we came across. Now it's time to explore the untold, to dig past the surface and uncover the truth lying below. This is the untold story of Amanda Nunes. And this story, I believe, begins long before Nunes steps into the octagon, before women are allowed to step into the octagon.
Do you think that's true, though? Because I get what you're saying. I get we're going to go over the promotion, huge part of this, but do you think that maybe, devil's advocate here, do you think maybe Amanda Nunes could have benefited a little bit? She's been hindered a lot. Do you think there's any chance she benefited from some of her losses being sort of before women's MMA was in the UFC, and she's hidden away in Strikeforce and Prime or whatever the fuck? What was that first one called?
Yeah, the Brazil organization.
The one that I got excited and thought was Pride for like 2 seconds, and then I realized. But no, because we kind of talked about the Stipe thing. When you see somebody lose, did it help her that some of her losses were hidden away?
I would say yes, except for the fact that no one's paying attention to her wins.
That's fair.
And we're in modern day MMA. So
yeah,
I don't think her losses would have been that significant. What I was trying to get at when I made that comment is just that we've seen, and look, people change, organizations change. That's okay. But we saw the UFC be super resistant to women fighting in the octagon when they were fighting in Invicta, when they were fighting in Strikeforce, when Bellator was coming around and promoting. I mean, women were fighting in nearly every other organization. UFC was almost the last one to jump on board. And then when they did, they're all gung-ho about it. But then they're very particular about who they're promoting. And they get their star in Rousey, which is great. Rousey earned that spot based on her fighting. But we've seen this evolution where they're promoting pretty, let's just be honest, let's call it what it is. They're promoting to their demographic. They're promoting pretty, by society standards, pretty white females. And Amanda is not a white female. She's not a blonde. She doesn't fit the stereotypical mold of the fighters we see heavily promoted by the UFC. And I think it begins before she even gets into the UFC.
That's fair. And just a little behind the scenes here. There's actually a board hanging up behind Taylor in the studio here, and it says Women's MMA on it because was this September of last year? You're saying it's a calendar. You update your calendars about as often as I do. I see. And we actually back then were fired up because this was right around Nunes Shevchenko, and we were pretty fucking fired up about the whole scene because, again, even back then, Nunes was getting no attention. And we spent a lot of time for our OG fans, was that episode 16, I think you were saying?
Yeah, episode 16.
Going over this, and, there's obviously a huge problem with how Nunes is promoted, and we think there's maybe another angle to take on this. So I don't know if you want to. Should we go through that and repeat it for people? I mean, do you want to redo it?
I mean, for those of you who didn't hear episode 16 of this podcast,
I don't blame you if you don't.
Yeah, you don't have to.
Yeah, you do not have to go back to listen, but we'll summarize sort of what we were saying back then, and we feel the same way now. And before I get to that summary, really quick, I want to say this so that we're clear. This is not. This is Amanda Nunes' episode. So this episode is about her. But this is not a fan club for Amanda Nunes whining about how she hasn't been promoted. This applies to more women in the sport as well that have earned this shot. And for a while it applied to Rose Namajunas, and we said it in that episode as well. It wasn't until she's sort of anti-establishment, anti-pretty girl, and then beats the champion that she's finally starting to get her promotion. Even Dana calling her the next Ronda Rousey, and they still weren't pushing her the way that she deserved to be pushed. So this isn't just about poor Amanda Nunes. Amanda's a great fighter. She can defend herself. We're not white knights on horses here. We're just telling the story how we see it, or the untold story how we see it.
Well, Felice Herrig is a part of that as well. Chris Cyborg, like there's numerous girls or women in this sport.
It goes way further than that. Look at their struggles promoting Brazilian champions, period. Look how long it took them. It took Chael Sonnen to make Anderson Silva. Jose Aldo, nobody cared who he was till he lost to Conor, till Conor started talking shit about him. I'm going to go real deep here. Look back to when Jason Mayhem Miller came out with a pink boa, and Dana White sounded like it was like 1976 and was like talking about how that has no place in MMA. And look, by all accounts, Mayhem is a straight guy, right? But why get all up in arms about a pink boa and stuff? Like, the sport and the promoters struggle with things that are different, things they don't understand. And I think Amanda is the perfect combination of shit they can't comprehend. You know, they haven't had a chance, or they haven't shown an ability to promote a gay champion because she's the first. They struggle with the Brazilians. For a long time, they struggled with the women. Post Rousey, they struggle with the women, right? They're just getting a little traction going with Rose now, but I mean, look at the ones they've succeeded with. It's all because of looks. So I think this is, for her, I know you're saying we're not white knights, but I think she is one of the worst cases, or the most egregious cases of it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I don't think necessarily... He's not, Dana, for instance, they're not avoiding it. Like, they just don't know how to do it. So, like, I believe there's a comment out there saying that they're going to be more diverse than, like, the World Cup or something of that magnitude. And you promote that you want to promote, like, other countries and their fighters, but either you do it poorly or you just completely forget that, you know, there's fighters out there that are great, that could be the face even of your company, and you just continue to downstep all of them.
Ronda, obviously, gigantic star. And then Holly beats her, totally gets the rub, gets a parade thrown for, huge star. And then she just, true warrior spirit, she comes back and fights Misha. Misha gets the rub. Crazy fight. Awesome ending. Misha's the star. Misha, true champion, comes back and fights. Amanda knocks her out. Biggest event, one of the biggest events ever. And nothing.
And then she gets Ronda.
Yeah.
And then nothing.
Devastates Ronda. And you're like, what the fuck happened? How can no one possibly care? And that 100% falls on the promoter because she's doing the interviews. And go listen to her talk. Listen to her on UFC Unfiltered. She's really nice, and she's got a personality. There's a language barrier, but she's trying, and she's learned English.
All right, so before we get into how to promote Amanda Nunes, which we have our thoughts on, let me just talk about, because we were kind of talking around.
We should close with that. We should
That's fine.
close
We can
with
close
our theory
with our
because
theory.
that's
fine.
because let's go through it all.
But I want to talk just briefly about. So you mentioned Stipe earlier and the comparisons there, with Stipe's losses and not believing in him. And there's another comparison there, and that is they don't even know how to promote a blue collar Cleveland, Ohio firefighter that is knocking everyone in the heavyweight division out. They can't even promote him.
And that is a very like big subject. Like what are they? First responders. Like that's huge in this country alone.
Yeah, right.
He's a fighter in Cleveland, Ohio, and you cannot promote him? How? That seems to me the easiest person to promote, other than your Connor, who you could just throw up a clip of him talking shit, and there it is. You have that is the easiest to me, the easiest way to promote somebody. He's a firefighter. He's just working man. He talks about, spoiling his daughter like any typical man would. And you can't promote him.
Well, and that
comparison's great.
Let me draw the comparison even further, because the true comparison is not really the lack of promotion per se. The true comparison is that Amanda Nunes is knocking everyone out. She is destroying everyone. And it's not just that they don't promote Stipe or that they don't promote Nunes. It's that Stipe has a higher knockout ratio or percentage than Ngannou, and Ngannou's all the rage. He's all the talk. He's the conversation about what a deadly striker he is, and literally the statistics are in favor of Stipe, and no one knows it. No average fan knows that.
They clearly pick, and I understand it's their job. They're fucking promoters, but they pick who they're gonna go with, and they just go with it. To their own fault. A lot, actually. Sometimes they're right. They got behind Connor, and boy, did that pay off. But they've missed on Stipe, and they're trying desperately to tell you he's the greatest of all time now, and it's like, guys, too late.
He's got a commercial now, too, the Modelo commercial. That's the first commercial I've seen that they promote.
They fucked that narrative up.
Too late.
And they're screwing this one up, too, because you do feel like, a lot of her stories back with her early sparring was that she sparred very hard. She probably took a lot of damage in there. She's lost a few fights. This run, I hope it lasts for a very long time, but it may not, and they might miss the boat on this one too.
You know what, you say like they're screwing up on this. They screwed up, and if she loses, say she lost the belt in her next fight, then what? Like they're like, oh, we didn't promote her. This is why. No, that's bullshit, because you had every opportunity to. She beat Miesha Tate, who got the rub from Holly. She beat your golden child in Ronda Rousey, and you still didn't promote her. Like,
and that's the other thing.
Excuse.
The counter to this, the counter would be, oh well, they put her on the biggest cards. They put her out there. They try, right? But you're like, yeah, but that's okay. You put her there, but you got to promote her. They literally, in some of the for the Ronda fight, they don't even mention her. It's literally just she's back. Remember the poster?
Yes,
just
absolutely.
She's back. Who's she? Oh, Ronda. Got it. Great. Who's she fighting? And no one knows.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge fucking problem.
To me, this is the Chris Weidman example all over again.
Yep.
They missed the boat. And I know you, as a Chris Weidman fan, believe he's probably still got a run in him. But they missed that opportunity. They had an All-American, American flag on his back, take down the undisputed king of MMA in Anderson Silva. And then he runs through everyone else. And by the time they kind of start to promote him, then he starts losing. And then it's too late.
They do this all the time. They did it when Frankie beat BJ. They did it with Weidman. You're right. Like they spend more time justifying why the champion lost, and they don't want to talk about why the challenger won. And they just, again, we came out of that Ronda fight. What was all the MMA media doing? They were talking about Ronda's head, and is Ronda going to come back? And it's like, hey, by the way, in front of you is the real Mike Tyson of women's MMA.
Right.
You know what I mean? Ronda was delusional with that, got way too caught up. And, well, she's right here, and she's still your champion.
Who, by the way, is an incredible jiu-jitsu practitioner.
Yeah.
We don't even get to see.
No.
Like, that's one of those, like, Vitor Belfort things where it's
Totally.
like she's coming up and jiu-jitsu's her thing. Karate, boxing, capoeira, but jiu-jitsu's her thing. And then she gets into MMA and it's just knockout, 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 knockout. By the way, fighters. Also, that's in the women's division, which doesn't typically have a lot of TKOs. I
Yep.
mean, I would be willing, without looking at any statistics, I would be willing to say that she probably has one of, if not the highest TKO finishing percentages in that women's division.
Oh,
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
I would say it's the highest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got to be the highest,
Yeah.
right? Again, just like Stipe,
Yeah.
which no one talks about. Here's this female fighter who's finishing everyone, and there's nothing being said about it.
And I know we have our own solution, but this is the UFC's problem because boxing figures it out, right? Like, word traveled fast about, like, Golovkin. Triple G, for anybody that was even following boxing remotely, it was like, hey, there is this guy that knocks fucking everybody out. Word travels in boxing. They let you know, like, this guy, you watch him, and literally, you can pass, they do it all the time. Kovalev, these people, language barriers, they try to be charismatic. Triple G tries. He is a gorgeous he is a beast. He has charisma, but Kovalev, a lot of these people really struggle, and boxing does a good job of promoting and getting their name out there. The UFC just can't do it. You've got a knockout artist here. She's literally the one that dethroned Ronda and Misha, these household names, and nobody knows
And this is
her.
going to date our podcast, but she's about to fight again, coming up, and
The buy rate,
is
it will
anyone
be...
talking
No.
about this at all?
And this is what, like, I was going to say this beforehand. I'm not even going to lie. I kind of forgot that 224 was happening this
Right
weekend.
now.
Well, yeah,
Right.
225
I'm-
and 226 are on the horizon.
That's
Yeah,
all
And
people are
all
talking
the conversation is about that.
Yeah.
June,
So
July,
this
August.
is getting swept under the rug.
It's, man, it just goes, and it's in Brazil where they have, I think Brazilians are the biggest fan base of any fighter. Like the way the Brazil, we've talked about this before, the way Brazil gets behind their fighters is incredible. And I think there's got to be, we got to maybe do the statistic ourselves, but Brazil cards, I think out of 13 fights, I'd say 10 of those, like, they're all, okay, there's all Brazilian fighters in each of the fights. That's what they do when they go to a country. I'd say 10 of those Brazilians win. Like, the win rate of Brazilians on their own cards is incredible. How are you not promoting this more?
You know what? I'm pissed off. I'm stopping you because I'm pissed off because I just realized that if you just take the bare bones of this, like this Brazilian who knocks everybody out and shit, you could think we were talking about Cyborg. And they had this weird thing with Cyborg forever. And guess what they decided to do? They decided to get behind Cyborg when they really needed a draw. And guess what? Cyborg's a huge fucking draw now, right? Mm-hmm. And you know, we talk a lot about the looks here. Well, Cyborg's not exactly a model, right? Whatever. But she's a fucking world beater. And it's an attraction. And people want to see it. They put her in Brazil. It's a really big deal. Why doesn't this translate to Amanda Nunes, who, by the way, has never popped for PEDs? Like, Cyborg has a similar trajectory. She beat Gina Carano. She beat a lot of the people that the fan base was, the general fan base was behind. Why can't they do this with Nunes? Why can't they just turn her into Cyborg? Because they've got the fucking blueprint, but it's right there. And they're just, fuck it. And instead, not only do they not do it, they shit on her, which we should get to that too with the sinusitis thing.
Yeah, let's go into that because we'll circle back in the end to what we think the UFC should do to promote Amanda Nunes. Hint, the Barbie killer. We'll get
alert.
back. Yeah,
Episode
spoiler
16.
alert there. We'll get back to that. But yeah, let's talk about the sinusitis because when we talked in her story, we told you that she had to withdraw from a UFC just hours really before the event. So this was right around weigh-in time, 24 hours before the fight. She has to withdraw. And Dana is not very kind when he talks about her reason for withdrawing.
And she just says, so I'm not going to fight? I mean, she refuses to fight? I mean, I know you can't, I guess you can't physically make somebody.
No, you can't make anybody fight. And it's not that she, is like, I'm just absolutely refusing to fight. She said, I don't feel right. I don't feel good. I think that it was, 90% mental and maybe 10% physical.
So now hearing something like that, you can obviously understand the frustration that a promoter is going to have when their main event falls out right before a fight. That's got to be really, really frustrating. But hearing that clip, you might deduce that this whole thing is all in Amanda's head. That, yeah, it's a sinus issue. And I can tell you from us, from our side of things, whenever some fighter falls out of a fight, we question it too. Like, okay, what's the real reason? How serious is it? Whatever. You're allowed to speculate. But I'm going to tell you right now, if a fighter like Amanda Nunes is pulling out of a fight, it's not because she stubbed her toe. It's not because her nose is clogged. It is a serious issue. And for Dana not to recognize that, as long as he's been in the business and as long as he's seen tough fighters fight with injuries, he has to know when a fighter pulls out, it is not because they want to pull out, it is because they have to. And when you hear Amanda and Nina talk about how serious her sinusitis is and how all the stuff that makes her better is banned by USADA, so they can't even take it. So she can't take these pills before the fight. And then they want to give her, prescription, but it's too late. You realize that, she's doing everything she can. And I'm just going to jump ahead a little bit and we can talk about the sinusitis thing. But when she talks about the fight with Cyborg, because they were supposed to match her and Cyborg up, and things on Cyborg's end didn't work out, whatever. But she says, again, just like Miesha Tate, she could have sat and waited for Cyborg to be ready. But she's got that hyperactivity. She's just wanting to compete. She says, it does me no good to have the belt if it's just sitting at my house. My goal is to defend the belt as many times as I can. Dana White, if you're listening, and you're not, but if you were, please understand, Amanda Nunes is not withdrawing from a fight because she's got problems with her mentality or she just doesn't feel well. This woman wants to fight. She wants to knock other women out, and she's doing it over and over again. This is a serious issue. And if you're not going to promote her, fine. But at least have her back when she's physically incapable. There is nothing, I'm sorry, I'm going on a rant here. There is nothing that pisses me off more, and this happened to me early in life when I worked for employers on an hourly basis. When I would call in sick, and I was sick probably once a year, maybe once every 2 years. But if I call into a job and you question my sickness and I'm vomiting my brains out or I've got a fever of 104, there's nothing that pisses me off than you questioning my work ethic when I've called off once in 600 days. I'm not calling off because I'm hungover. You can say that about the other guys or the other girls that do that, fine. But don't question my work ethic when I've proven it over and over. Amanda has proven it over and over, saving cards, doing what she needs to do. I think it's ludicrous that Dana's saying this stuff.
And something that kind of just irks me is the fact that, I know he's been in the fight game forever and he knows a good fighter when he sees one. But, dude, you cannot say that about a fighter when you don't know the first thing when it comes to stepping in the octagon in front of killers and fighting yourself. Listen, someone could come on this podcast and say the same thing maybe about us questioning his promoting. Like, oh, we're not in his shoes, we can't promote that. It's different because there are ways clearly that he is not, he has shown time and time again that if he's not behind someone 100%, he will not promote them at all. Well, Nunes has never shown you that she's scared of anything or that she's worried, of running into somebody that might beat her. I'm sorry, but she beat two of the most talented, gifted women in bantamweight history, and Miesha Tate and Ronda Rousey, and did work. She's not worried about that. And, people say it's sinusitis. If you're sitting on your couch, sure, it might not be a big deal. But when you're training 8 weeks for a title defense against another killer in Valentina Shevchenko, I'm sorry. The the whole body fatigue, the not being able to breathe, constant runny nose, and congestion everywhere, like feels like your head's gonna explode, I'm not gonna fight either. That's just the way it is.
And the other problem here too is if you're listening to a podcast like this, you're a pretty big MMA fan. So by now you have a lot of questions about shit Dana White says. You think he lies sometimes. Things that he says are confirmed aren't really confirmed. A lot of times he's just bullshitting to get by. But Dana White is the voice of the UFC on ESPN. So your common fan who just only watches when McGregor or Rousey or Brock fight, his whole reputation is he tells the truth all the time. Remember, that's how Dana was like the one in a sport, combat sports, was filled with lying promoters. Dana White was so appealing in the beginning because he told the truth. So when you hear him say something, when you hear him say that and make it sound like she just backed out even though she was cleared, and so she kind of ruined the whole deal just because she 90% mentally didn't want to fight, the regular people who just watch ESPN believe it.
Yeah.
And they write her off and go forget it and hits she'll never main event again. Fine, she's not a main eventer, forget her. Well, now, a month later, wasn't it the next month he had her main event again?
Yeah, against the opponent she was supposed to fight, and she wins. Although I don't think she won. That's another story.
For that to come up. But she's headlining again.
Yeah. And to that feud, I mean, she's beat the megastars. She's got a rival. The Shevchenko feud is a classic.
I personally, so going into that fight, I personally was thinking, I'm a big Valentina Shevchenko supporter. I think she maybe is the best female fighter. Maybe Nunes is, but there are certainly two. There and Rose. No. There's certainly two of the 3 to 5 best female fighters in the world. So to have two of the top 5 fight each other and to not have that be a big deal is insane to me. And actually, I went back and I listened to Joe Rogan's podcast where he was talking about the sinusitis right after it happened. I was like, I wonder how Rogan felt about that because I didn't remember the episode. And he doesn't pass any judgment or anything. But what he does, that was with Maynard Keenan, by the way.
Oh, very nice.
Excellent.
Nice
but what he does say is that he thinks Shevchenko Nunes is maybe one of the best women's fight in history.
There you go.
Going into that fight. And I was like, I don't even remember Rogan saying that, but I feel the exact same way. Mm-hmm. That's a super fight.
Yep.
We blew past it in the story because they blew past it in the UFC, but I am telling you, that split decision, it wasn't the most exciting fight in the world, but that was two of the most talented people fighting each other. That was Daniel Cormier, John Jones. That was Anderson Silva, Chris Weidman. That was, or even bigger than that. I mean, that was BJ Penn, Frankie Edgar, whatever you want to call it. This is two of the best women ever fighting each other with similar styles.
I feel like that feud has a similar feel as Wonderboy Woodley, where like they have these awesome moments in their fights, but because it had dull moments in the second one, people, if you bring up, you're a big Wonderboy fan, mm-hmm. and you know as well as anyone, he's not going to get to fight Woodley again. Well, those fights were razor thin, like very controversial decisions. It's the same thing with the Shevchenko Nunes. Why does it get shit on? Maybe the promoter should talk about what a classic close fight it was. I mean, shit, the first Woodley Wonderboy got like fight of the night at the New York card with McGregor and beating Eddie Alvarez. So why do they shit on it? Because again, if they play this up that she barely beat her rival, maybe it would help make her a bigger goddamn star instead of saying terrible fight. Nobody cared.
You know what else is crazy too that just clicked is they were in talks with fighting Cyborg. Amanda and Cyborg, right? She'd go up 145, fight for the belt. If Shevchenko takes over the 125 belt, which I think she will, she is then set up to have another super fight in another weight division, or Shevchenko vice versa, going up to 135. You have it's there in front of their face. You're talking about her fighting Cyborg because nobody wants to fight Cyborg, and Amanda can strike. And then you're going to talk about a third fight between her and Shevchenko.
You're spot on.
What other? I mean, other than Conor McGregor,
Exactly.
who else is going to can go to other divisions and fight for belts?
Think about the way that media freaks out when he's fucking around yelling at Woodley, and they're like, "What if he went 145, 155, 170?" Well, she's beat the woman that we think is going to win the 125 belt.
Yep.
She is 135, and she could certainly sounds like she's going to fight Cyborg at some point. She could win 140.
And she said she's going up. That's not going to be a catchweight
There
fight.
it is. She could have beat the
going up to
125, 135, and 145 champion, and nobody knows who she is.
It's one of those
It's
situations.
crazy, man.
She is a Cyborg victory away from being the best female fighter of all time.
Exactly. And why should you believe it's going to work? Because she's beat the woman she's beat the woman that beat, well, I guess the woman that beat the Ronda, but she beat Ronda, she beat Misha.
She beat Duran to me. She beat
Duran to
she
me.
beat
Again, all these former
Shevchenko.
champions, Shevchenko. If she beat Cyborg, why is it going to work this time? Because that's the blueprint. That's how they probably in their minds should have been
Too
marketing
late.
her. I mean, we'll have our own twist.
She's
on
gonna
it.
miss the boat. They're screwing her out of the, as they say, payday that all these fighters wants. They're screwing her, and guess what? She's still taking fights and still doing. And I don't know if maybe she is. Maybe we're not listening to MMA podcasts really now. Is she complaining that she's not getting these money fights? I don't think so. I just think she wants to fight.
Well, gosh, this is just one of those things where when you take the name away, when you take Amanda Nunes away, you take the face away, you put one of those black silhouettes, and you just put female fighter, champion, beat Ronda Rousey, list all of the people she's beat, put first openly gay champion.
Yeah.
Put,
Super interesting.
whatever you want to, put all of that stuff next to her name. You would think that would be one of your biggest stars.
Yeah.
In
Imagine
the
if
UFC.
That's a great way to
imagine
look
if
at
you
it.
did that and you put Gina Carano's picture on it.
Yeah, God.
Seriously.
It would be
no
the
offense to anybody.
biggest star.
Seriously, that would be
Yes.
the biggest star in MMA.
That's
Absolutely.
crazy.
100%.
You
It's
put
not
up all
fair.
her statistics and everything that she's accomplished and done.
So this seems like a
That's
natural time to go
incredible.
into what we think is a solution to this. And we said this before, but for those of you that didn't make it through episode 16, and we don't blame you, we think they should market her. If they're not going to make her Cyborg, if she's not going to be the Mike Tyson, make her the Barbie Killer. Embrace this thing. If the general public, if the promoter can't get past the fact that she doesn't look like a Barbie doll, make her the Barbie Killer. Make her the one that goes out and beats all these pretty women like Ronda and Misha. Make her the scary, make her a bigger, better version of Cyborg. Because again, she's got more time. Cyborg is aging. The Cyborg run is over. And Cyborg will forever be tainted by the PED stuff.
Yeah.
This is a clean, devastating, really charismatic, nice fighter. Marketer, make her fine. If you don't want to embrace the nice side of her, if you don't trust the fans,
Which she's a truly nice person.
which she literally has her girlfriend who can help bring that part of her personality out. If you can't do that, fine. Let's embrace the monster. Let's make her the Barbie Killer.
Real quick, we didn't touch on this when we were talking about their relationship, but do you know how when their relationship first started, they used to use Google Translate to talk to each other because of the
Whoa.
language barrier?
That's pretty
Damn.
crazy.
And so Nunes says, literally, I would write on my phone, I like you. I want to kiss you. Can we go watch a movie at your house? She has gone from using Google Translate to doing interviews in English. And she's only 28, guys. She's 28 years old. She's got at least 5-6 years left in her. And if you look at the landscape of the 135-pound division, she's got a good chance at staying champion unless Shevchenko goes to challenge her there. But if Shevchenko stays where she's at, even if she goes up and loses to Cyborg, she can come right back down and she could be your champion for a long time. They do still have time. They have time to right the ship.
So let's do it. Let's make her the Barbie Killer.
We actually, I'm going to continue on to that, using Google Translate. That's crazy, one. But two, didn't we just talk about a relationship? What would be better? Is it communicating or is it?
Yeah, we literally just did that.
Right? And look, one of the most, out of the fighters we've done and the relationships that we've done throughout this, one of the, I guess, true love relationships that we see, was like pretty much non-communicative.
Yeah.
They
Like,
also
that's
sounded like
crazy.
shitty texts that I would like try to send my now wife in the beginning. Like, I like you. Wait, no, delete that. I want to get out of here.
But there's a story there. I mean,
Right.
that, for lack of a better word, that's cute. That's
Right.
I,
But they
women,
won't go that direction.
Whether homosexual or heterosexual, women can get behind that. This is women's MMA, and I know the demographic, 19 to 35-year-old white males. I understand that. But don't you want to expand that demographic? Don't you want to use this opportunity to reach a wider audience? Again, Zach, you said they're talking about being the most diverse sporting organization and whatever. Here's your opportunity.
Well,
Here's your chance.
We've spent over an hour trying to sell you on the wonderful parts of her personality. Like, yeah, she's an amazing person with this wonderful story with her girlfriend. All this is an amazing story, an amazing career. But if they're not going to embrace that, if we got to go old school boxing and just make her some, again, Mike Tyson was the baddest man on the planet, and he was an even bigger star when he got out of prison. Like, in boxing, they know how to embrace that negative side. Then fuck it. We'll take the low-hanging fruit. We'll make her, we've offered a million different angles. She should be a superstar because she's the first openly gay champion. That should be a really big fucking deal. And there's gonna somehow be people that are hearing this that actually didn't know that. And that's crazy.
Well, she came out, quote unquote, on accident when Nina got into the ring after she won her fight against, was it Shevchenko the first time? Actually, no, I think it might have been UFC 200. And it was UFC 200, and Nina gets in the ring and she kisses her. And that was when the news broke, more or less.
So that should have been the big story coming out of that, and yet you never hear about it. That was just more of let's get ready for the Ronda show. They announced the Ronda comeback shortly thereafter.
Well, you know why? Because the first thing Dana said was, I just text Ronda, and she says, oh, I guess I should get back in the gym.
So
it was literally right after.
Completely ruined any momentum.
And that's all I'm saying, because again, if you hear this podcast and you go, the best they could come up with was to make her a villain. No, we're just saying, if you can't do it, if you can't take this story and make her a hero, then fine, make her your villain, because that would work too.
Absolutely.
She totally does everything you would possibly need her to do in every fight, and I guess maybe it's going to take her beating Cyborg to just be like, what else can she fucking do?
But at that point, it's gonna be too late, and people who are just coming to the sport or have only been here for the Conor ride have missed out on who Amanda Nunes is or was when she was tearing these girls apart.
That's the problem. To the brass at the UFC, she's the draw killer, but they need to make her the goddamn Barbie killer and make her the draw.
Exactly.
All they care about is the fact that she's removing the women that are drawing for them, when they need to make her the goddamn draw.
And if we keep going back to episode 16, you don't have to listen to it, but we do have a clip that's on YouTube. We specifically talk about this Barbie killer and promoting her this way. So this isn't the first time that we have brought this up. This is something that, we just keep going back to because they're obviously not doing what's right in front of them.
Well, I mean, it's pretty apparent that the UFC, it promotes a certain type of female in terms of looks. And to Tim's point, if we're going to make her the villain, this is the low-hanging fruit. This is the easy way to do it. And I am telling you, we've said this off the air, it will work. And we know it will work because the three of us sitting here have wives that watch the UFC touch and go. And I promise you, they will care more about the Barbie killer than they will about the next pretty blonde that's fighting. I guarantee you
it's the Cyborg
that
thing. It's the people want to see Cyborg because I don't know if they're scared of her or it's just this devastating thing. That's what gets people excited is the knockout. They make her the villain, people will want to see it. Maybe they'll be rooting against her, which is a shame, but they'll still be rooting one way or the other.
And Amanda Nunes will be the champion for the women that don't look like that.
Yes.
Seriously.
No, you're right.
They will be like, I mean, there are women out there that hate the fact that they don't look like that, but they even more than that, they hate the ones that do look like that flaunt it, that whatever, and they will see it as a comeuppance. Yep. They will see it as their personal champion who's out there making her name, not on her looks, but on her skill. And in the climate we live in 2018, that could not be more apropos. It really couldn't be.
Yep. WWE just caught on to this. They just did a thing this year. Zach, you saw it at WrestleMania where they had Nia Jax is a bigger woman, and they finally, instead of just having the young, attractive blonde, they let her get her comeuppance, and the heavier woman who was being body shamed beat her because they knew that's the atmosphere, right? That's the climate right now. Is that needs to be seen, number one, and then she gets to be the champion for the people that aren't.
And wasn't that something that was almost expected and respected?
Everyone loved it.
Like, everyone loved it. I thought it was great. So I saw the whole, they promoted it well about, they promoted your saint,
Alexa
I guess
Bliss,
you'd say.
Goddess.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she really is
a goddess.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's what
so
Tim said.
they promoted your goddess, body shaming her and like going behind her back. And
Yes.
they did it the right way and, you know, promoted
Told the story.
this woman exactly.
And then
and
everybody
it's accepted
cared.
by the people.
Yeah, and if the UFC could just try to bottle that up for 1 minute and go, you've got it. Just sit down for a minute, put 5 seconds. Don't put together another goddamn promotional video of Joe Rogan screaming and everybody just screaming about knockouts. Like, just talk about her. Tell her story. Hero or villain, it's a crazy story. One way or the other, people will get behind it. But the problem is right now, those same people don't even know she's fighting.
It's the violence that got them to where they are, but it's the stories that will just keep them going.
Yep.
They need to get on the story train.
That's a perfect place to end it. So, 2 women fighting inside a cage isn't for everyone, but stories like Amanda Nunes's are. This is MMA Untold, and if you don't know, now you know.
It's all good. And if you don't know, now you know, you know, you know.